Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy, and this is of particular note if you drive an electric vehicle. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected. And if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now we are joined by Neil, Arwin, Bev, 10th Man, Eli, and a whole bunch of people on Discord. So welcome, one and all.
Hello.
Good day.
Hey.
Hello,
Thanks.
hello.
Hello, one.
Good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon. Enthusiastic lot. Any evidence that you can acquire an elevation angle from a curved adjacent?
As long as it's locally flat, that works out just fine.
Just fine for us, asserting that Earth's a plane. Not so good if you think the Earth's curving away from you at 8 inches per mile squared with your model afflictions.
Yeah, but if you consider it to be locally flat, then just eventually it'll curve away from you, right?
No, it's supposed to curve away at 8 inches per mile squared. Go ahead, Rams.
I was just going to say, you can't even do any angular geometry with a curved line or curved lines.
Precisely, that's the point of this question. Any evidence of Earth curve? Physical geometric sphere edge tangent points, formerly known as Earth curve.
Well, Zanuck did present something yesterday. He presented a triangle with 3 straight sides and said, this is proof of Earth curve. So, I don't know about that one.
Go back to this one with the angles. What angles have an adjacent? Angles have 2 rays and vertex. Where do you guys get an adjacent from? From your complete misunderstanding of geometry and trig?
No, the adjacent is in regards to the triangle that you're going to be forming if you're measuring a star to get its GP to triangulate with it. Well, to do that, you're utilising a right-angled triangle. The adjacent is the line adjacent to the hypotenuse of the triangle with a 90-degree angle to do the trig. So, when you're measuring the angle and you're utilising a flat baseline, that's your elevation angle measurement. You're doing that to form a 90-degree triangle with the GP of the star. So, any evidence you can have a curved adjacent when acquiring an elevation angle that'll be used to triangulate with the stars. That's utilisation of a right-angled triangle, and the adjacent will be straight and flat on that right-angled triangle. Are we all clear now, Neil?
You clear, Sean?
Oh, Sean? What do you mean, Sean? My name is not Sean. What are you doing?
That was a Sean Hawkins question to us.
May I interject, Nathan?
If I'd have known it'd come from Sean Hawkins, I've probably not answered it because it's just like, it has to be dumbed down a little bit further. But there we go. Go ahead, 10th.
Yes. Neil and the audience listening, the minute they say 90, it's a right triangle. It's perpendicular. And that's what you subtract it from. So if they never say 90, then you got a horizontal angle when you turn your sextant sideways and you're measuring the angle between the lighthouse and some other building, or 2 stars in the sky. That's a horizontal measurement. But when you say in navigation, zenith, 90, subtract from 90, you're left with only a right triangle. These people are crazy.
It's pretty cut and dry to me. I find it laughable.
Yeah, but you're talking about somebody that's stupid. That's not going to understand the detailed explanations given daily here about triangulation. What he'll
Oh, he
only pay
listens.
attention to is someone like Bob saying, we don't need triangles. He'll latch on to that bit because he's thick. Won't realise that in saying it, he got chastised and held up as an example of stupidity. That would be Bob the science guy when he said that you don't need a triangle. Yeah? So that you've sunk low, Neil. You're dealing with complete morons.
Come
He
on,
also-
Nathan. You don't need a triangle for triangulation. I mean, it's only half the word.
Arwin summed
he
it up.
also-
There you go, Neil. That was much better than my 2-minute explanation. That summary was far better, Arwin. Yes, indeed. It's ludicrous. Embarrassing.
I do this because they listen. They said to me, we heard you on Nathan saying that you came here and destroyed everybody, which I never did. But I know they're listening. So hopefully something will sink in today.
Well, let's hope they're listening. 60 people watching. Please share the show. Any evidence the
Yeah,
distance
oh,
to the
so-
sun?
Hang on.
Oh, okay.
hang on.
Easy now.
No, that same person, Bob, the pseudoscience guy, said that you don't need a horizon, and then next thing you know, he says you do need a horizon.
That's correct.
That's what you get
laughable.
if you're acting as a stooge, though. So that's what stooges do. Well, Bob's a stooge. He was being a stooge for MC Toon or McToon. So same with Left Lane, who was a useful idiot in that regard on yesterday's show. So I was up till quite late trimming that out. I'll probably release it over the weekend. If you remember, you can see that right away. But MC Booger Eater proves a flat plane with elevation angle, I believe the title is. But yeah, sticking your head in the sand and pretending that you don't need straight lines, well, you don't have any. Why did Bob tell us that he doesn't need any straight lines? Or he doesn't need a horizon, to be more accurate. Why would he do that? I'll tell you why. Because in their world, the line between you and the horizon's a bent line. Not conducive with triangulation, won't give you a triangle. So you don't need the horizon. Yeah, you do. Is the rebuttal. Crap rebuttal. But that's the rebuttal. Or, don't need a triangle. Why? Well, because they can't get one off a curved surface. So they'll deny needing one. It's like all of the rebuttals. Debunk their R value. We don't need R. Okay? Right, whatever you say. It's just pain for you. Hey, Sleepy Mario.
Well, you don't need an R value if you know everything is a sphere.
Well, that's got an R value then. If you know it's a sphere, you've got an R value. But that's the kind of logic they employ. Yes, Arwin.
But just because you know everything is a sphere doesn't mean that you can attain the radius value of everything that is a sphere.
It would be
But you can
fundamental to
certainly
every
know
part
it's
of your.
there,
But
right?
it would be fundamental to every part of your existence, like they claim it is.
It's really tough when you have a sextant, which is an angle measuring device, to say that works on the curved surface. Really tough.
Moving
Yeah, but
on.
it works because it looks so flat.
Indeed. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
No, in order to get a distance, you'd need to. No, just no.
Can you take the
No
pillow
location.
from between your mic,
Unless someone.
Eli? Can you stop talking through your pillow, Eli? Oh, it's a connection problem, not a mic problem. Sorry, 10th and Brian. Go ahead.
I don't know who was going to say it first. Tent, were you going ahead of me?
No, I was done.
Okay.
Yeah, it was me.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
Arwin, then you go ahead.
Arwin, we better let Arwin go first, Brian. Otherwise, this isn't going to go well for you. Go ahead, Arwin.
Yeah. In order to establish a distance, you first gotta confirm a location.
Is there not a step before that, though?
Elevation angle measurement.
or that there is something actually to have tangibility, physicality to it for us to be able to do stuff with it?
Yeah, the
well,
ground's gotta
that's
be flat.
comes secondary.
Yeah.
First, you got to establish that it has a location and that you can reach that location. Yeah.
See, the issues there with the word "it." Do we have to establish that the sun is an "it" in the first place to establish that it's got a location?
Yes.
Yes.
I agree. I've got evidence. Bear with me.
Oh,
That
really?
claims that the sun is a physicality and it therefore has a distance, and we can calculate it. We can measure it.
Hold on. I heard two things in that statement. I have evidence that there is a claim. Was that what you said?
No, I have evidence that claims that the sun is a physicality for us to be able to measure its distance to.
Yeah, that's what I thought you said. So there's
Yeah.
evidence that somebody's claiming this. Yeah. that's
No.
what...
I have empirical evidence that a claim is being made.
No. I have evidence that claims to have proved that the sun is a physicality.
Okay,
as
that's
opposed
okay.
to
No, you've
a light.
rephrased it. Okay, what is this claim to be evidence of sun physicality?
Blasphemer.
Okay, so can you see my screen, Nathan? Present it if you would.
Audience has got it.
5th of February 1960, right? Radar echoes from the sun. This is a bit like the ping reflections from Venus, but now this is directly to do with the sun. And it says, on a number of mornings in September 58, April 59, and September 59, attempts were made at Stanford University to obtain radar echoes from the sun. So it's direct parallels to the Venus one. And we've already established the Venus one was based on the assumptions of Eratosthenes, right? The data obtained on 3 days in April have been intensively analyzed with the aid of digital electronic computer. It appears that the solar echoes were obtained on each of these days. The experiment was possible only because of the availability of facilities built up at Stanford for several different research programs. It goes on to talk about lots of things to do with the history of it, but I want to point out this bit here. It says, quote, the time travel of a radar pulse to the sun, approximately 93 million miles away, and back to the Earth is about 1,000 seconds. At the end of the transmitting period of 900 seconds, the antenna was connected directly to the receiving system, and the transmitter and pulsing circuits were turned off. So what it's saying is, after 900 seconds, they stopped pinging data or pinging stuff to and from the sun, and then they connected it to the receiver. The issue that is the problem here is that they're assuming that they know how far away the sun is to get something back from it, but they spent 900 seconds pinging data like against what they think is the sun, and now they're going to start reading it. Is it possible that they might be receiving reflections of these ping datas from, say, a covering over the top of it that's bouncing around like radio waves, continuously bouncing, maybe?
That's a possibility.
Whatever.
Hold on. I'm not going to get into you immediately putting this onto your own burden of proof reversal where you have to suddenly justify something you're claiming it might be. Let's not do that. Let's stick to what you've said the claim
Sleeping
is.
Warrior. He always does.
Ugh. Yeah, I know. He's interjected with his own postulations that weren't necessary. But thank you for the claim. Okay, you've already pointed out the first problem. Brilliant. So they haven't got R to get the timing to claim they've got a received signal within the heliocentric framework based on R. Same problem Christian Huygens has got. He solved it by just giving you an R by assuming that, was it Venus is the same size? No. Yeah, Venus is the same size as Earth. Is that right?
Yeah.
Can I
He assumed that Venus was the same size as
are we?
Earth, and he assumed that Eratosthenes calculated the circumference of Earth correctly when he assumed that it were a sphere.
Right, so this has got the same thing, but it's already got that R measurement to say we've already got the timings. So we already know how long it's going to take to come back. And then they send out a constant stream, and then they turn on the receiver and go, there you go, it's just come back. And that's obviously the first one we sent out, going on the timings that we know with R, which has been debunked. Right, there's a second problem, though. Does he mention anything about black bodies in that text?
Black bodies?
Yeah.
No,
Sun
I'm
in
not
the
seeing anything
heliocentric
about black
models
body.
claim to be a black body. How are you supposed to get a return signal from it?
I don't know.
You can't.
I'm only telling you what it says, but
Well, you can't.
let me read this little bit.
It's a plot hole
This
in the
is
Star
70
Wars.
years ago.
Oh, God, Darwin, third time you've interrupted this conversation. It's part of their narrative that the sun is a black body. So in their narrative, they can't get a return signal from it. Now, I don't care what the sun is, and I'm not going to try and postulate why they're getting a signal back from their little man-made devices that they're claiming with heliocentric timing that we've debunked by taking out their R value they don't have anymore, and pointing out when they've done this in the past, they had to make massive heliocentric assumptions about things in the sky and transposing that R value onto them to give them this timing that they've already got in place to turn off the machine and turn on the receiver. None of it's relevant, they don't have R. Further to that, in their own bloody model, they've got the sun described as a black body. So they're not going to get any reflecting signals off it. It's complete nonsense and doesn't even work in their own narrative.
Don't they say that it's not a perfect black body and therefore they can get reflections?
That's married bachelor style. You can't have a not quite perfect black body. No, it's either is or isn't situation.
Well, let me just continue reading this little bit because this is, I think this is really useful. It says trials were scheduled for each morning from the 5th to the 13th of April inclusive. Because of various difficulties, for example, equipment failures, timing ambiguity, that's a big issue, isn't it? Timing ambiguity and radio interference, recordings suitable for intensive analysis were obtained only on the 7th, 10th and 12th of April. The test procedure for September 58 differed in several respects from that described above. They've done it a few other times since, but the key point is that they didn't get reliable information at all for several days. And how difficult would it be to get reliable ping data the sun's massive in the sky compared to Venus. How hard can it be?
There's a much bigger problem. Did anyone watch my video at the weekend?
Brian's been waiting for ages, actually. I forgot to reintroduce him, Arwin. But yeah, if you can wait till after Brian, that'd be great.
Okay. Do you want me to wait for Arwin?
We've done that gag once. I'm sure he'll actually be tolerant.
Okay. Yeah, has anyone actually watched my video at the weekend?
I've watched lots of your videos. Which one specifically?
The last one I brought out two at the weekend. One is connected to the other, but the last one I brought out was about the parallel sun rays. None of this works without the one-way speed of light measurement. So all this stuff means nothing because you have to have. They're using a two-way speed of light calculation that's based on two averages, one of them being an R value average, and four pre-assumptions. Not real, so none of it can work.
Perfect. That's the third problem. Well, they haven't got a speed of light for their timings. Yeah, go ahead, Arwin.
Right. So yeah, the first thing that stood out to me immediately within the first 30 seconds that Tony started reading on it is what they've basically done is assembled a bunch of computers, pre-assumed an entire setup, and then calculated it.
Yep.
So they didn't do anything. They just calculated. They sent a bunch of signals and then pre-assumed it, then eventually divined the results with, 3 out of who knows how many. So they got like 10% actual results that they could get to fit within the model that they were expecting. So they were just divining data based on presuppositional models using computers. Also, it's 70 years ago. They didn't know it was supposed to have a black body yet.
It wasn't ideally described that way yet. It wasn't absorbing all magnetic radiation or whatever a black body does at that point. So, they didn't know. It's a bit like, their narrative with travelling through high radiation belts when they go to the moon. Well, they didn't know about them then, so it didn't pose any problem. Now it's part of the narrative.
But isn't that the magic trick, though?
It's a good comparison to say Star Wars, the movies that came after, right? In the 80s, they didn't know that Han Solo was going to get a kid, right? But he's there, and it's a very important role, apparently, in the movie story continuation. And now we're there, so we know now. Well, exactly. Anything that was going to be done back then, they didn't know that was going to be it.
And likewise, as the example we got earlier from whoever it was, I've forgotten, we had an example where, in the more recent Star Wars, which are technically in the further past in their chronology, you've got them sending warp drive, or whatever they call the speed of light in Star Wars, X-Wings, little ships, to destroy gigantic, great big motherships. And as a result, all the shrapnel destroys all the rest of the fleet. But they didn't know that in the 80s, which is technically in the future, in that storyline. It's like they didn't know in their future that their past involved somebody just sending something through warp drive and destroying everything. So
Hold on. Hold
Right.
on. The whole,
Oh,
the
yeah,
whole
yeah,
Star
you mean the
Wars set
second
takes
one.
place in the past.
Yeah, using what is it? Warp drive suicide ramming tactics. Yeah, that because if they'd known, they would have done that a lot.
hyperspeed, I think it's called. Is it hyperspeed in?
Light speed.
No,
Oh,
it's
warp drive. Warp drive.
No, that's
Warp drive
that's
Star Trek.
No, jump to light speed. That's
Yeah,
how
there
they
you
call it.
go.
There you go. It's obviously important we sort out this nonsense because it's closely related. In fact, the exact same as the heliocentric stuff we brace against. We should really spend more time talking about some of that. I know in the past we've focused on stuff like Matrix, but ultimately speaking, a lot of the programming is reinforced. I'm not going to say daily because not everyone's watching movies daily, but almost daily by the media we take in. You know, heliocentrism is part of our stories, and it's like when they tell you ages gone by, where people would sit down and reiterate the stories of the religion of the time to make sure that the descendants would pass them on to their grandkids and so on. Well, we've got the same thing now with our religion. We just have the stories of heliocentrism told in the format of Star Wars and Star Trek and Red Dwarf to reinforce the religion of the time.
Yeah, can I make
All
a quick
part of the
comment since
magic trick.
the one who brought that up?
Citation, police, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So in a fictional world, okay, where everyone knows it's fiction, when you do a continuity error like that, it's called retconning, which is short for retroactive continuity. So in a fictional world, you can make up stories of what happened in the past because there actually is no tangible past. But in reality, that's called an ex post hoc fallacy, where you're taking something from the future and imputing it on the precedent.
Post ad
Yes.
hoc fallacy. I
can I
love
say-
it. You're good with these citation police. You're right on the money with all your fallacies. So I can't remember an example to give, but there's been several, and I've been editing the videos going, right, he's in there trying to get a word in, and he's blurting out the fallacy. John does it as well, but John does it in text form. So he knows that his text messages that he's sending in the live stream G+ chat will flash up, and both you and he identified a particular fallacy at exactly the same time. I think it was with Flat Earth Goddess. It'll come to me. We still haven't done housekeeping, by the way. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
I still wanted to round out that good subject because I love the conversation.
What, Star
I'll keep
Wars?
it short.
Star Wars and Star
No,
Trek.
not Star Wars. Storytelling in general. Because
Okay, go ahead.
what
No, go ahead.
the quote, the guy who just talked and gave that quote, right? I use that all the time as a game master. So what I used to do is I get the players in, I draw up some quickly improvised idea of a scenario, let the players do what they do. Sometimes the players, as they play, they come up with what might this be. They see this grandiose thing in something that I basically improvised. Then afterward, not having hinted to them like, oh, I just made this up. I don't say that as a game master. But then afterward, I use what they thought it was going to turn out to be to actually build a backdrop story for what really happened afterward. And it works brilliantly.
Yeah, in this example, though, we've got an introduction of an error that doesn't comport with the rest of the narrative, but the error's been introduced after the fact. So post ad hoc, well, ad hoc would be on-the-spot explanation for something that doesn't work. Post ad hoc, well, I don't need to explain that any further, but that's brilliant. Citation police, I love it.
So
Category error fallacy. Category error, I think it was, the other day. Maybe it wasn't.
So can I just conclude my point? My point now is that we've now established that the sun is a physical body. That's the claim of the document because it got successful ping bounces back from it. So that's the proof that it is physical, so we can measure it.
No, they don't have no, they can't derive the mathematics. They assumed the timing. They haven't got a two-way speed of light. And what was the last one? It's a black body.
Claims
black body.
The article proves that they did get ping reflections from it, so it is a physical body, Nathan. You're just denying the science.
Yeah, well, no, we just applied a little bit of critical thought to it.
Science doesn't prove things anymore, remember?
Yeah, but 99% of the Western world is going to lock on to that as proof.
Yep.
They're just a bunch of Smurfs now.
This is from the 60s, Neil.
Does that matter?
It is actually being cited by blurfs.
Smurfs. They're called Smurfs now.
No, they're called blurfs.
All right.
Can't
Well,
call them
then,
smurfs. That's an expression of endearment.
if it's currently being cited by blurfs, that would be anti-flat earthers. I would have it in the lexicon down as, but blurfs is good enough. Well, then that's cause for pain when we rip it to shreds, as we've just done, right? Anybody want to poke at the
No,
bears that are now bleeding?
A blurf is basically a bloated Smurf.
Yeah, lovely.
Let's not ruin the term blurf. It's a good term.
Next
I'm not
question.
ruining it. I'm introducing a whole new way of thinking to grasp how science has become a culture by displacing the word and instead using Smurf. And then you can suddenly Smurf everything. And that's how the Smurfs call everything Smurf, right? That's how science has been used and mutilated and turned into a cultural word.
You mean like we used to have all this Smurf for the globe, and now Smurf doesn't prove anything?
Exactly.
Smurf proves
Yeah, chocolate
absolutely
gets it.
Smurf chocolate.
Smurf proves Smurf. Yes, that's the level we global.
Yep.
Smurf more.
I just want to give credit to where I got this information from. I want to shout out to the website that is mctoon.net, because that's where he cited it from for proof that the Earth is the Sun is a physicality. So now everybody in the audience is aware that it came from McToon's. He's made a claim that it's proof that it's physical, and we can measure it. Therefore, and that's where you'll find it. So shout out to McToon.
Tony,
He cited his own website.
Well, that's where I cited it from.
So he's citing that the thing that proves it's a physical body is this black body reflects things. That's the
Well,
fundamental
yeah,
of
but
his
he
proof.
says that it's. He said what I found out. I went on his website to see what he says with respect to the black body claim, and he says, "Let me read to you." He says, "It's really good." He says, "Oh, where's it gone? It's here." He says, "Some people have claimed that the sun is a black body, therefore cannot bounce radar. This is incorrect. The discussion on the sun's black body status quotes, there is no such thing as a black body. The concept of a black body is an idealization based on some simplifying assumptions. The sun doesn't exactly satisfy those simplifying assumptions." And then he gives a link, and guess where he links it to? Quora. So it's people chatting in Quora, and that's his citation to debunk the claim that it's a black body. That's
Right, it's
literally
their
standard
claim.
evidence.
Hold on. This is back to them fighting amongst themselves then. It's their claim.
Correct.
Some more things to work out, guys.
So, to rephrase McToon's website, part of our claim is the assertion that the sun is a black body. Wrong. Doesn't work that way. Here's some people on Quora discussing how it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, no science for whether it's a black body or not, just people on Quora discussing it.
No, you've missed my point.
I assume
hold
this
on,
was-
you've missed my point. Sorry. Are we claiming it's a black body, Anthony?
Well, that's what he's citing a rebuttal to, that we claim that it's not a black, that we claim that it is a black body.
Yeah, I got that. Just listen again. Are we... do you go around claiming the sun is a black body, Anthony?
No.
Do I go around claiming the sun is a black body? Or did I specifically preface
no.
it with, in their narrative, they claim it's a black body? They being globe believers with their narrative of the sun and what it is. Not us.
Correct.
So when he says some people, he means bull believers who are on his side assert that it's a black body, but he doesn't agree with the bull believers who claim it's a black body from his own side. That's what he actually means, because we don't claim that. And should he claim that we do claim that, we'd point out where they claim it, and then say, regardless, you haven't got an R value to get your timings.
You and your black bodies are ruined, Nathan. Tony.
I was waiting for that.
You can kill it at the source before you go to the sun.
Go on.
What's the source?
They use spectroscopy, right?
Radar bounces in this case.
They do, but in this, it's, yeah.
Well, this is a radar bounce you're talking about. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
even a radar
spectroscopy is
bounce,
only... Sorry.
Hold on, Alwyn.
even a radar bounce there's stuff in between us and the sun, right? So they negate that. There's
Hold on.
clouds. There's
Hold on,
yeah.
hold on. You've got to be so
Now
careful.
you're arguing
Hold
within their
on. No. If you don't do what I've done, you're going to get jumped on by me. I'm sorry, SC Montreal. Right? So you're now claiming that stuff between us and the sun, are you? That's your claim now, is
No,
it?
I'm claiming their fantasy. We're in
You
their
got to be
fantasy
careful what you
world.
say. You just made it as a claim. That was the
I
words
jumped
you
on
used.
that second he said it. Yeah, it was. You've made a claim the second you go there. You've got to stay away from our claim, whether there is or there isn't. In their world, whilst it's still claimed to be a vacuum, there is still matter.
I think they just conjured dark matter
Arwin,
into
right,
the sun.
Arwin, I don't know what's into you today. All the important
Sorry.
points are getting rumpus by you. Just try once more, Adam. We'll get there, I promise. Sorry to single you out and take our time over this SC Montreal, but it's just a bugbear that leads people into a trap where they end up having to defend stuff they've said, and they're like, no, all I actually meant was you claim it, and they turn around, if it was MC Toon in this example with black bodies, I don't claim it, because it's about him and his... No, it's about heliocentrism and their overriding claims that they make about their stuff.
Agreed. Yeah. Well, to be honest, I thought you were talking about spectroscopy, so my bad. I'll concede on this one.
No, SA has a point because they actually use radar in celestial spectroscopy and satellites. So SA actually has a point.
Well, look, we
That is
can
powered by
further
celestial
this because
spectroscopy.
what is radar? It's supposed to be light, right? A
It's
form
not
of light?
spectroscopy.
No, it's
You know
not
what I mean?
spectroscopy. That it is
Sorry,
not.
go on,
Absolutely.
Sorry, ask a question, SA. Sorry.
No, I'm just making a point that what you guys said, it's black body radiation, and obviously that's what they claim. So it cannot bounce off the sun. Absolutely. Like there's no disputing that. But my point is what's between us and the sun. That's the point I was making. They kind of like brush that aside, right? Like open space. And I'm saying that's not the case in their fantasy.
Great.
Well,
We're at that point,
their
aren't we?
language for them though, because they'll make it your argument rather than their own. That's what Nathan was saying.
Yeah.
But what they
Maybe I
actually
can
do...
repeat my point again.
I was gonna
and
say,
he
Arwin, go
immediately
ahead.
shouted. Yeah. Because everybody else seems to be able to do that without getting criticism for it.
Oh,
right?
it's going to turn into a moan. It's not going to turn into a valid point.
I am, because it's like the fourth time now. The fourth time.
Yeah,
where
just
you
make your
single me out.
smurfing point.
This
I'm
whole
not making a
point with
smurfing point.
Montreal
I was
getting
making a singular,
criticized.
quick sentence to clarify everything, but it seems to be so wrongly timed that I have to be criticized for it every time, right? So what I wanted to say again is this whole black body of the sun is just heliocentrist fantasists injecting dark matter into the sun, right? Another mathematical correction to account for things that aren't actually real.
No.
That's what it is.
I'll tell you another killer on this.
Not dark matter. No.
No, it isn't literally dark matter, but it's the same effect as dark matter. It's there to account for something that isn't actually there.
Oh, by comparison. No, fair enough. Yeah.
I don't
Exactly.
understand
Ad
that
hoc.
point.
Yeah. Ad hoc. Correct.
What the hell is dark matter?
They just
I'll
made
give
it
you a
up.
better one for this fantasy killer.
Like,
Go on,
How
SC
long do
Montreal.
they say that the light takes to travel from the sun to us?
Brian.
1,000 seconds, I think. they said.
Hold on, sleep Mario.
8.03 minutes. 8.03 light minutes.
Correct. So what are you pointing your radar at?
You're pointing at what? They pointed at the
You're
sun, I
pointing
think.
at what?
They say they pointed at the sun. I don't know what they... I presume
Yeah,
that...
but the sun ain't there.
Well, that's another thing.
See what
Like,
I'm
how
getting
do you
at?
point it? It's a
But
valid
they
point. The
don't-
sun's not where they say it is on the model, is it? You can't point it at the sun because it's like 9 minutes moved around the orbit, the rotation of the Earth, because the time it's take for the light to get here.
You're going to move to
Exactly.
15 and it won't before
Obviously,
it
adjust
comes
for the
back to you.
movement like you're hitting a running target.
wait a
But
minute.
none-
There was
it's-
like 3 people. That was a good point.
Yeah,
they
go ahead,
don't
Adam.
have...
Yeah, the sun's always in its apparent position, right?
Hold on, everybody.
Hold on,
Hold on,
guys.
everyone. Adam had a good point. I just wanted to get through.
Hold on.
Oh, God.
There's 11.
Hello,
vectors.
can you hear me trying to get control? Adam, go ahead.
Yeah, well, just to follow on from what you're just saying, that's one thing. You've got to aim to an imaginary position where you think the sun is going to be in 8 minutes when you fire your ray out, and then you've also then got to calculate the angle that you're going to bounce this thing off a spherical surface so that you can catch the rebound ray when you've moved in the heliocentric model for 16 minutes. Because it's got to go there and then come back to you. Assuming it will be 16 minutes, because you're going to have to work out the trajectory. There may be slightly differences in the length of the triangle you're building. But it suddenly becomes exceptionally complicated because, like I said, you've then got to account for rebound off of a spherical surface.
Yeah, and also
they could just get some old lady to do the math for them.
Brian, not only that, the Earth moved in its orbit whilst it's
Brian's
receiving the
waiting
light
to
back,
get his
right?
point in as well. Then Sleeping Warrior. Brian, then Sleeping Warrior, then Citation, please, if you would.
Thank you, Nathan. Yeah, all this falls apart because there isn't a one-way speed of light measurement. Everything to do with this and everything to do with parallel light rays, all that rubbish. There's no one-way speed of light measurement, so all that is complete and utter rubbish.
How would you find the angle of the radar?
John. Just 1 second. Go ahead, Sleeping Warrior.
I was just adding on to what Adam was saying about how complicated it gets, because obviously the Earth has moved in its orbit, so no longer is the sun in the position it appeared to be relative to our horizon because of the Earth's rotation. It's also moved in its orbital position, so it's no longer in the position it was at when it was sending its signal originally.
How did they get a freaking return signal?
Just 1 sec.
Hold on. It's worse than that.
Go ahead. Citation, please.
Okay. You guys are only talking about the relativity between the two bodies. But remember, in the heliocentric model, there's 11 displacements. 11.
Right.
Shout out to you. The galactic displacement, the cosmic displacement, and there's all these other vectors going on that they didn't account for whatsoever.
Yeah, it's a whirling dervish wall. It's something that
it's just details.
Something that YouTube tries to draw attention to. Back in the day, 3 or 4 years ago, he used to moan at me. You don't talk about this enough. From the chat. Shout out to you, YouTube. There was someone else from the panel who wanted to get a word in that. Who was it?
It was me.
Sorry, John.
I was going to say, how do you account for the angle that you're going to fire this radar at the sun?
You're going to need a flat plane for that.
Yeah. We'll just guess.
Isn't the sun just like the Earth locally flat too? It's even supposed to be a much bigger ball, so...
What?
Disco ball sun?
No, Owen just said, isn't the sun supposed to be locally flat too? It's also just a big ball, therefore also flat. Just Owen throwing in contradictions in terms just to throw us all off our game.
That's so annoying.
Because why not? It's the whole model. It's what it is, a whole contradiction in itself. It's ridiculous.
But they do actually claim locally flat. I mean, while it sounds absurd, that is actually what they claim currently. When they're drawing out tangent planes to geometric horizons they don't have, what they're drawing is a flat plane teeter-tottering on a single point of a sphere that's no longer being used. The imaginary floating flat plane that's got nothing to do with the sphere below, other than one point, the tangent point horizon that we've debunked. That's the only connection it has to the sphere, the tangent point, and we've debunked it. Sad times for globers at the moment, it really is.
The circle of equal altitude destroyed locally flat.
Nathan, you brought up an excellent point. Remember, oftentimes we'll point out that they're projecting the problems in their model. So they accuse us of having this imaginary floating infinite flat plane in free space, but really they're the ones who have that.
Yeah, that's another one like the Edge when they ask us to give them an ice wall, or to show us the dome when we tell them they can't have gas pressure without a container. Here they are doing it again. You've just got a floating plane in space that bears no relation to anything we experience. No, we don't. You think you're on a sphere and you've got a floating plane in space that's got no relation to anything sphere-y, other than the tangent point we debunked.
Well, if the Earth is a ball but locally flat, then maybe all balls actually turn out to be locally flat. I think that geodesics really agree with that concept.
No ball is flat anywhere. It's one of the intrinsic geometric properties of a sphere shape. No flat anywhere at all, ever, at any scale.
That's correct.
Don't
But
tell
maybe
Highlander
we
that.
are
He might
only-
laugh at you.
He wanted to argue. No, I'm allowed to argue with you that my ball's got lots of flat surfaces on it. Because he wanted to argue that. You know, on the one hand, we have them telling us no flat ever. If it's completely flat, as you walk along it, you're local to gravity and it is definitely curving 8 inches per mile squared. Ergo, they say the salt flats are curved. They're curved flats. That's what they say. Because there's no tolerance of non-curved surfaces on a sphere. Because that's what a sphere is, right? So you end up with bendizontal. Well, then when you point out that, well, no, you're going to have flat surfaces to do this trig, they go, well, obviously I can argue for having flat surfaces all over this sphere now. But no, you can't. That's what you brace against when you claim it's a sphere.
Yeah, but
And as we
they've been
pointed
forced
out,
to
we
concede
pointed
that...
this out the other day.
Just one sec, citation, please. Go ahead, Owen.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, just wanted to say, like, no, look, if the ball they're standing on actually is flat, but it's also a ball, then, well, that applies to everything else in their model then, including
It's a
outer space and
contradiction.
the other balls.
Yeah,
so
it's
they're
just-
all actually flat, right? Mathematically, at least, even though they're all balls. And if it's okay
Contradiction.
with okay
It's a
with everything
contradiction.
else.
Yes, that's right. But Arwen's pointing out the farcical nature of that contradiction while you're chanting his point through him out there, Neil. But yes, it is a contradiction. That's
Sorry.
the point Arwen's making and labouring it with an example of how contradictory it is. They want it to all be flat on a sphere. It makes no sense. Well, why do they want it to all be flat? Why do they have to correct it to flat when they're making these measurements? Because it is. That's why.
Yep.
You would think that would wake them up
Just
a
one
little
sec,
bit.
Neil. Go ahead, citation, please.
Okay, so when Highlander made that claim, he didn't realize the implications that if you force a horizontal plane onto a sphere, it would not be experienced from the point of observation as a plane that's horizontal. It would be experienced as a slope.
Yeah. But when you're
if
trying
you
to
were in
gain...
the center of the horizontal plane, if you were in the center of the plane, it wouldn't be horizontal to you. It would look like two reciprocal slopes.
That's correct. That's why they don't mention 90. So if you have it... Oh, somebody happens to have a handy diagram. Oh, no, it's not quite what I was hoping for. Nevertheless.
It is.
Okay, you take it away, Brian. You're better at depicting these things than describing them mine. So go ahead. You're on screen.
Yeah, I'm just showing the difference between reality and what the globe claims. So in reality, let's say this is where the observer is. This star is at their 90. This star is going to be at their 70. You're talking 60, 45, 35, something like that. So due to perspective, the stars will appear to drop in the sky. But that's why the angle is changing to them. They're moving away from you, just like looking along a straight road with lamps along the road. The lamps appear to drop down. If the road is long enough, it'll end up with just a light on the horizon. That's what will happen. And so that's reality. So all their angles come from reality, because they have to. But what they do then is they do this, right? What they did then was they started using reality and call them tangent planes. These little purple ones are tangent planes. They are claiming that the likes of Polaris is huge and very far away. So all these angles are all basically parallel to each other. All these lines here of sight to Polaris on their model are all parallel to each other. But they have all these tangent planes that they need for all these angles. So what they did then is, how they back engineered it is, they just took reality, brought it to the center of their globe, across their equator, let's just say, and determined due to distance. So they knew as they moved away from Polaris, let's say, this way is the flat way. If they move away from Polaris, it starts to drop in the sky, appear to drop in the sky as they moved away, right? So they worked it out that if you bring that to the center of a circle, that appearance of drop, if you ignore perspective, that appearance of drop can be worked out as a degree change from the center of a circle. And they worked out with the distance in accordance with the drop, what that degree change would be in accordance with the distance. So let's just say I'm going to go right around this circle here, around to this point here. So from the North Star here around to their equator, that is 5,400 nautical miles. So they worked it out that this line here is about, they worked out due to the amount of drop per distance of Polaris, right? Optical drop. They worked it out that, well, that is about X amount of nautical miles, and this one's here is about X amount of nautical miles, and this one here is about X amount of nautical miles, and this one's here is about X amount of nautical miles, because all that is, the longitude lines, is straight line distances. They're just horizontal distances, and that's what Eratosthenes measured. A part of a straight line, he didn't use nautical miles at the time, but that's what he measured, a portion of a longitude line. A portion of a flat diameter, that's what he measured. And that's why him and Al-Biruni had to refer to the maths of Pythagoras. What is Pythagoras famous for? Right angles. The Pythagorean right angles, that's what he's known for. So all he did was took the right angle, put it in the center of a circle, then worked out what the radius would have to be of that circle for them to match what they see in the sky. So all these angles from the center all match up with their parallel lines of sight to Polaris, but they had to create all these tangent planes, all these reality planes for it to happen. Because really all they were doing was exactly what we see here on the left. They're all just, as they moved away from Polaris, or as another star moved away, they appear to drop in the distance. Let's ignore perspective. Let's put that 90-degree angle in the center of a circle, and they worked out what the radius of that circle would be. So that's, and claimed that the sky was curved because we were on a curved surface, as opposed to we're on a flat surface and the sky only appears curved, but it's not really. It's actually, from what we can tell, flat.
Okay,
if
so
we use angles.
To follow on from Citation Police's example, if you can keep this on screen, Brian, what Citation Police is saying is, from this position, let's say that your star in the centre is actually your viewing position. Now we're going to do this off a spherical surface. Now, when you've got a tangent plane from this point to, let's say, the last star in each example, yeah? So on each point on the right, you've got your straight line coming down, which is where this doesn't work, because this needs to be 90 degrees to the position that you're measuring from. So in terms of the line of sight to this star, they describe, well, we do have a flat surface, but it's a flat surface meeting the surface of the sphere at a tangent point. Now that only works if you first measure the angle to the star off a flat baseline. That would be a tangent. They have teeter-tottering on the top of this sphere. The problem then occurs when you measure the next star, because that star and its GP is tangent to the plane in a completely different slope to where you've just measured. Now, if you do measure it on a flat plane, which you must to get the angle, the elevation angle proves Earth is flat, then take that measurement and do what Brian's discussed, which is put the measurement that you took on the surface in the centre of the sphere. Then you can match it up to the measurement you took on the surface. But you have to first have everything, every single star, meeting at 90 degrees to a plane from your position. So it means that each and every angle you take is taken off a flat plane to then move the maths to the centre of the presupposed spherical Earth to make it work with the presupposed spherical Earth. The problem being, you're not standing in the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth when you measure a line with a flat plane beneath you. You're on a plane measuring an angle. So that's where you've got to begin. To get the angle, to make the assertion that every single line isn't coming in in the way we see it, diverging light. It's all coming in parallel and to the center of a presupposed spherical Earth. You've got to make that assumption after you take an angle measurement on a plane.
I'm just going to show Nathan, right, just to back up exactly what you said. I'm going to take away the circle. The zenith, right, I'll bring this up a second. Zenith always has to be above the head of the observer and always has to be above the GP of a star, the geographical position of a star or whatever.
Meeting the ground at 90 degrees.
Yeah, exactly. So they can never talk about the center because zenith, and this is the official definition from astronomy, has to be above the head of the observer and above the geographical position of the star. So the problem there is that means they have to be above the surface. So even on a globe, they have to be above the surface. They can't be just above the center. They have to be above the surface to be a zenith. And when you do, I'm going to take just a different line a sec. And I'm going to make it a different color. I'll make it something bright like red. Red. So what's wrong then is that if I take a zenith angle from, there's my 90, right? There's my zenith, and I take a zenith distance to this star, right? And let's say that's I don't know, 45 degrees or 50 degrees above the horizon, whichever, right? Then that star, there's the GP of that star. So this is the zenith above the GP. This is the zenith above me, and this is the measurement, right? It's the zenith distance between the co-altitude. So let's say that's 50 degrees. That means I have to take that from 90, and that means 40 degrees by 60 nautical miles. So 40 by 60 nautical miles is 40 by 60. That's 40. That's 40 degrees. That's 60. 40 from 90. Is 50. Right. So that's 50 minutes of degree, which become 50 by 50 times 60 nautical miles. So the only way to have that is for a 90-degree angle, right, at your zenith, and another 90-degree angle at the geographical position of the star. And that distance along the top here is translated straight down and becomes your horizontal distance along the surface of Earth. So 4 6s are what? 6 and 6 is 12, 4 6s are 24. It'd be 2,000, is it 2,400? What is the distance? It'd be 40 by, it'd be 50 by 60 nautical miles. That would be your distance along the horizontal, along a horizontal plane. Because you can't use 90 degrees without a right angle. It's
Can't
just
get that
not
90 degrees unless the line along the base to any position below any star that you can see and measure is flat. This is proof that we live on a plane. So just had a super chat from Mike. He says, what happened to talking about proof? This is proof, Mike. Thank you very much for the super chat, by the way.
Nathan, I'd like to share a slide, but I need Brian's. I'm going to kick Brian off if I share it. So
You're done, Brian? If so, thank you very much. That was epic.
No hassles. I just want to show just before we go. This here, that is a co-altitude, the zenith distance from zenith to zenith. That is, let's just say that's this is a 40-degree angle. That will be 50 minutes of degree.
Okay,
that will be then transformed into 50 times 60 nautical miles as another straight line measurement on the surface of Earth. Okay, I'll go off there. Okay?
No, that's minusing from 90 when you say you're going to minus it from 90, but that leaves one question before I let 10th go. When you acquire zenith, so if you're measuring it from your zenith, how'd you get your zenith?
It's straight above your head.
Yeah, how'd you get that though?
How do you get your zenith? You need a 90-degree angle.
And the 90 degrees to what? The ground being flat?
Yeah, because this is, right, I'll show you. This is your zenith, okay? And this is the other side of that 90-degree right angle. You have to red line. Yeah, It has to be flat. No way out.
You don't line it up in a zenith mirror then?
That's
It's a
what I was driving at.
reference to the
Adam's.
surface.
Brian, just let Adam go for a second because he's picked up on where I was going with that. Go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, just being sarcastic. So there is no such thing as a zenith mirror. The way in which we calculate our zenith is by a reference to the flat baseline that we create and work from the surface on which we're dwelling.
So for all those people out there chanting, well, you take it from your zenith, you don't utilize the ground. We're measuring an angle in the sky. Yeah, you're going to be minusing that from 90 to give you a ground distance. That's the point of doing this. But regardless, how did you acquire your zenith? Yeah. Well, you needed 90 degrees to a flat baseline in order to acquire it. So you're going to need Earth to be flat to be declaring you've got a zenith in the first place.
You don't measure the zenith. It's located from the accuracy of your parallels. And the accuracy of measuring your angle, your elevation angle. So it's derived from the measurement you take and the flat baseline, because it's 90 from that which you're calculating.
So to summarize, Adam, first you get your flat Earth, flat line baseline to measure your elevation angle. That's step one. First elevation angle, correct?
Yep.
Can I share a slide now?
Then zenith. Next. Step two, after flat Earth established and proven. Shout out to you again, Mike Jones, for the super chat. Once you've proven Earth's flat in order to establish your zenith, then you've got your zenith to bark zenith at us and claim you're only making a sky measurement that's not going to be minused off 90. Go ahead, 10th.
Tell me when you see it.
Yep, got your protractor.
All right. Sextant is a navigational tool that measures elevation using angular distances. You can use a sextant to determine the altitude in the sky of the sun, moon, or other celestial bodies relative to the horizon. So here's your sextant, glorified protractor. Here's your baseline. Here's what Brian's showing you, the GP of the star. The zenith is directly above the Earth. And then, of course, you've got a GP here. So the sextant's first measurement is the angle, okay? Now we're going to go to zenith distance of a body is the angular distance from the observer's zenith. So here's the observer's zenith, the 90. It is the complement of the body's altitude. Here's the body's altitude right here. This is the complement of that altitude. When the altitude is found by measurement, because you're measuring degrees above the horizon, with the sextant, the corresponding measured zenith distance becomes available. This is your zenith distance. This is, for example, if this was 50 degrees, well, let's say 45. Well, no, let's go 50. 50 degrees, that leaves you 40 when you minus it from 90. 40 times 60, that's 2,000 miles, right? So there you have your distance from GP to GP.
All flat.
Has to be.
Yep, it can only be flat to do this. But with that, I'm going to say, first and foremost, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after-show possible. Today's live show possible. Of course, a massive thank you to all of you in Nathan Oakley live stream. Catch up with what show I'm actually doing right now. For smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing. Hopefully subscribing to my second channel, Nathan Oakley, if you want to keep up with the uncut and after show that for some reason I think I'm rounding out when I'm not. Once again, stay tuned if you are watching on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering stream, as there will be an after show to follow. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day.